Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you in the world community of Life is a Sacred Journey. I am Micheal Pope, and I am your host, and I am so thankful that you have joined us here on Blog Talk Radio, or if you're joining us here on Facebook Live. We want to thank you for just coming back every single week, and just to let you know how much we appreciate the listenership and all of the people that keep coming back week after week after week. So hit that share button, share this episode with somebody who's out there. And I want to talk a little bit. So much is going on in our world today with the news, and we've got the Black Lives Matters movement and all of that. And I've been thinking a lot about that, and in thinking about that, one of the things that has come up for me is that we really are talking about a time in our existence as a humanity where we have to become a human community. I was reading a book by Dr. Anderson, and I love him because he says, we don't want to be a neighborhood anymore. We want to be a community. And because in a community, everybody thrives. In a community, everybody comes together and make sure that if you need something, we're going to make sure you need it. You get it. In a neighborhood, you actively make a choice on whether to communicate with your neighbor or not. You know, I have neighbors that live in my community that I love, but by just waving at them, I don't really know them. But in a community, you get to know each other. So I want to say good morning to Sister T, who has been spiritually guiding me on Wednesday mornings at 6 a.m. I get up and very early, as you know, and I have the privilege of sharing with her and others at Hope United Methodist Church, just a fellowship where she leads us through prayer and meditation. You can find Hope United Methodist Church on Facebook if you are so inclined to join us for those moments. Good morning to Betty and Carla and Felicia. I want to shout out to Felicia, who is the producer of Life is a Sacred Journey, and to her family in Moldova, who I know are very proud of her, and her husband in Canada. So thank you, Felicia, for everything that you do to make this broadcast happen and wherever it goes. I want to get in, good morning, Becky. I want to get into the conversation today, and I'm hoping one of our friends, does he have this guest call-in number? Send him that number. We have another friend that will be joining us really soon on the show. But I wanted to engage in a conversation with our young people. I think that I grew up in a time in the 60s where we were talking about, generation divide and one generation didn't get along with another generation. And I think we've learned from that. And now we understand that together, like that old song, united we stand, divided we fall. That's another song for you to be singing all day, Betty. But the reality is we got to do this together. And so I live with a Generation Z person. And so, she is my daughter, my best friend, my roommate. And of course I love her. And so I asked my daughter, Jade Davis, to join me here, at Life is a Sacred Journey this morning. She is a junior. Oh no, you're going to be a senior. Yeah. Oh my gosh. She's going to be a senior, when she returns to St. Mary's in the fall. She's pursuing a degree in business administration at this moment. I think she's thinking about going on to law and doing some other things, but she's got the potential to do so many things. And I asked her to join us along with another friend, Jacob, will be calling in, because I wanted to try to understand what's going on for Generation Z folks that are. I also have a millennial son, and he's in his 30s, and so he's in a different age group. And so I wanted to ask, and first of all, I want to tell you, Jade, thank you for joining. I didn't beat her up and tell her that she had to do this. But I want to thank you for joining. And I also want to tell you how much I love you publicly. Mm-hmm. You already know that. Everybody knows that. But in the world today, there is so much going on. Let's talk about COVID-19 first. So COVID-19 happened in your world, and all of a sudden you weren't going to school anymore. You weren't getting in the car and driving to St. Mary's. Jade lives at home. She's not living on campus at this time. She made that decision. So that flipped your education kind of upside down. Talk about that.
Well, basically, St. Mary's is the type of school that is meant to be in-person learning, in-person education. That's how the classes are made. That's what it's based around. That's how they get people to go to that school, is because they make that promise that it's going to be small classrooms in person. Mm-hmm. You're going to build those relationships. You're going to come out with a huge network. That's their promise. And so when COVID-19 came around, that promise got broken, not because they broke it on purpose, but because of what was going on. And so, having to go online for a lot of my classes, it didn't work. And a lot of my, peers, they aren't from America. So they had to, some of them were able to travel home right away. Others, they had to wait. Like my friend, he just got to go back to Italy, where he's from, to go home. And so actually on the final for one of our classes, he was on the airplane. So he wasn't able to join the final. So there was a lot of people traveling. A lot of people were missing classes. A lot of people were working because they're essential workers, and college students, we need money. And so of course they took the extra hours, because I would take the extra hours if I was able to. Mm-hmm. And so it just kind of flipped everything around. It wasn't about education. The teachers was really just trying to make sure that none of us were sick and that we were okay. They made it possible for everyone to get straight A's if you just told your professor, hey, I am going through a lot right now. And the professor would be like, okay, what can you do? And so it wasn't really getting that full education.
So how did the experience of getting to know, though, your professors a little bit more? Because I know we were online together for 14 days when I was sheltering in place after I had been exposed to COVID. I never got it, but I was exposed to it. And Jade and I self-quarantined for the first 14 days. And we both were on Zoom, like from sun up to sundown. And so I overheard, of course, some of those conversations. How did the relationship with the professor change, though? Did it become more engaged and more intimate, or not, meaning, in dialogue? And
actually, I think it was more less, because, I don't know, in class, even though we had the same amount of allotted time in class, sometimes I would be able to stay around after and just talk to my professor. On Zoom, we weren't able to do that. Once the meeting was over, the meeting was over. Of course, they checked in, but it was more of just a, good morning, hey, how are you? Are you here? Okay, let's keep going. Okay. When it got over to Zoom. So I guess that was the difference.
Did you have any of your friends and peers that graduated this year? And can you expound about what was that like for them?
They were disappointed, of course, that they didn't get to walk across that stage, but I think most of them are just happy to get out of there. As great as the school,
that's graduation, right?
As great as the school of St. Mary's is, I know a lot of them are happy that they're not going back. They're like, okay, we're ready to keep going. I don't care. They don't really care how bad the situation might get. They're like, we graduated. I have my degree. It's gonna work out. Whatever. Yeah.
All right, so COVID-19 itself, as far as your understanding, in the beginning, we all learned that there were seniors, and we know that, by the very nature of your experience with me. We learned that seniors were dying more. We know now that because of a whole lot of disparities, African Americans or what I call native blacks, as you well know, I don't consider myself an African American. As a native black, I see that people of color and black people are dying proportionately more. So from your perspective, because you grew up in a household where I kept saying to you, I'm trying to make the world better for you and all the other young people. Do we look like we failed you, Generation Z?
Yeah. Sadly, yes. It's okay. It was already probably going to fail whether or not you guys did anything in the first place. Because that's the world started and it was already failing from the beginning. My generation and my peers, we already knew it was going to be hard to do the things that we wanted to do. Now it's just the fact that we have to start completely over to do those things that we wanted to do initially. So I guess that's the thing that changed, is that now we have to make sure that, with all the protests going on, that we do it right this time.
Okay.
Because especially on social media, we don't want that information gone. I post about Black Lives Matter every day. All of my friends, we post about it every day, whether we want to or not, even though I'm tired about it, even though I might have some anxiety built up about it because I'm thinking about it all the time. I know I can't stop that conversation. It has to keep going. So it's the same thing with how the world is going to go for me. I can't stop this conversation. I have to keep going. I have to keep voicing my opinion, saying, yeah, you guys messed up, but we need to learn from those mistakes. So it's okay because you're teaching me what not to do and how to maybe do it differently next time.
How can we do it together, though? I think that's the key. That's where we are now when it comes to, I live in a world, and many of you out there who know me well, but Jade knows me probably better, I believe in eradicating all the isms. Ableism, sexism, ageism, racism, all of them, right? And I think I've counted like 9 of them now, or whatever. But so your messaging, though, your generation whom I love, because I hang out with you guys, you're not really concerned about people's sexuality, gender, who they choose. You had to explain to me what pan meant because I didn't know what pan meant. I'm going to be honest, as liberal and as such self-actualized, my daughter had to explain that to me. So what thing happened in your time of being raised where those things don't matter to you, or that as a collective you've moved beyond? You know what I'm trying to ask you? That you move beyond it. Like, we're stuck, right? But and not me. Yeah. Not me, but and not some of the folks that are with us this morning. But there are people out there who are stuck. Why is your generation unstuck? If we made mistakes, because we did, and we forgot the messaging, I think that's a great point, Jade. Thank you. I think, we can learn from that statement. What Jade is saying is the civil rights movement happened and we moved on. We kept moving on, but we forgot to keep practicing those things of movement and change and education and learning and coming together. And we do that. That as humans, we do that. We galvanize for the moment. Yeah. And then once everything calms down, then we go, whew, we made it through that, and we go back to living our same old funky lives behind the scenes, and nothing ever changes. So you're saying, Generation Z is saying, we want change, and we're going to keep talking, and we're going to keep putting the message out there till there is systemic, political, and economic change.
But even after that.
Okay, keep talking.
You can't stop the education after that. There are a lot of people I know right now that are pregnant and they're about to have kids. And even people that aren't about to have kids, they're saying, I need to make sure that I'm going to teach my kids about this. We're going to talk about this. They said, people are so scared about how young their kid is. And it's honestly, you just need to bring it up, because the later you bring it up, the harder it is for someone to understand. Because, even me, I was ignorant. I was stubborn when you reach a certain age. And so, I didn't want to listen. So obviously you have to bring that up at a younger age. You have to, even though it's scary. The world is a scary place. So you need to teach them the world is a scary place, but you can be happy in this scary world because it's possible.
So when you went to the march in Walnut Creek on, I think it was Monday, and black and white people together, young and old people together. Jade told me about a senior who was there. Just really, you could tell she was a '60s baby.
She was passionate, yeah.
She was a '60s lady, and she was passionate, and really that moved you. Tell me why. Or tell us why.
Yeah, just the fact that she wasn't afraid to walk with us, and she was trying to learn just as much as everyone else there was trying to learn. She was trying to change something. She wasn't scared of the cops. We weren't scared of the cops, even though we knew that they could harm us. We were just there together. We didn't care how old she was. We were happy that she was there with us. We want everyone there with us, even the cops. That's all we're asking. Come with us. If you're going to protect us, then march with us. That's the best way to protect us. Yeah, we want everyone together. That's the only way we can do it, is together. And to do it, you have to not be scared to just put yourself out there. Yeah, protests are scary. I will admit that. But it was a great time, despite knowing in the back of my mind and what they ended up doing in the end. But it was nice to be together and seeing people that I never imagined to be there from high school. I was like, oh my goodness, hi, you're here. And they're like, yeah, I saw it on your Facebook. And the parents told them about it, and they came, despite the fact of who they might have been in the past. That doesn't matter. They still came.
I want to share that we came home. What day did we go home in, Jacob? Wednesday.
Yeah.
So on Wednesday, Jade and I came home in the car, and we drove up to our house. It's on Facebook, and on our front lawn was sitting two of Jade's very good friends, Jacob and Tyler, both individuals I taught Sunday school and all of that kind of thing. And they were sitting on our front lawn and waiting for Jade, waiting to say hello to me. We practiced social distancing for a minute. They wanted to hug. I couldn't hug them. But the thing that touched, there's two things that touched my heart about that experience. I don't know if I shared this with you yet. One of them was how happy I was that two white boys felt comfortable to come to my house and sit on my lawn, wait for me to come home, tell me how much they love me, ask me how I was feeling, ask me if there was anything that I needed, and then hung out with you because they're your buds. They've been your buds for
years,
since little people. But then the other thing I thought about, honestly, is what if you and I had gone to their lawn and sat on it waiting for them to come home, not their families, because I know their families. Their families aren't like that. But what if we were sitting on the lawn? Would their neighbors have called on us? You see the double standard? This is the double standard that we live in. When people ask me what is white privilege and all of that, that's exactly it. And that's not a ding at my babies, because I was happy that my babies were there. And I hope they come and sit on my lawn, sit on my front stoop anytime. But the double standard is I could not go and do that in another 4 or 5 blocks away without a nosy neighbor or a bigoted neighbor calling the police on me. So that's the double standard, and that's the thing that one person of color has to always think about. How am I going to be perceived in this situation if I do this? Even though I know in another situation, it's no big deal. Mm-hmm. So for you, I know when your first moment of racism happened, you were in elementary school. Share that.
What was I doing? I was going out for recess to play. I was going to play tetherball with my friends because I was very competitive. That was the most competitive thing to do on the playground, was play tetherball.
In elementary school.
Yeah, in elementary school. So, this one kid that I grew up with, even after elementary school, I went to middle school and high school with him. So I knew him and his family pretty well, despite what he did in elementary school. He just decided to run up to me and call me a black dog. And at the time, I actually did have an African-American principal. So I immediately went up to her, asking her, like, hey, he said this, like, what are you going to do? You know, do something, please. Help. Asking for help. And I didn't receive any help. He got called into the principal's office. They called my mom. She told her about the situation. And she asked that he write me an apology letter, but that apology letter, it wasn't even addressed to me. He knew my name. I knew he knew my name. Like I said, we grew up together. This wasn't like kindergarten. I think it was maybe even almost 5th grade that he did this.
Yeah.
He called me Jane, Jane, which is not my name. And he never apologized for what he said. So obviously he didn't understand what he did, but I'm not blaming him because his mom should have said something. His mom should have done something, but she didn't and never did. Even in high school, when my mom was trying to become more involved, I want to say unintentionally, but it probably wasn't unintentionally, did some racist things to her. Like when it was 8th grade camp when we were doing that move up thing and they asked you to bring something and they asked you to bring watermelon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they did.
Yeah. Bring watermelon.
So again, you know, that's so, yeah, Jade, that's amazing. I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm. And it was his mom.
Yeah.
That asked you.
Yeah. So it's just, so, okay, because we're going to run out of time and I could have you. I'm so thankful. I love you so much. Thank you for doing this and sharing your soul. I share my soul with everybody all the doggone time. But for you to do that I'm honored. So, I have so much to ask you to share because I think everybody can learn from what you're saying. But you have all kinds of friends. You have friends from LGBTQI. You have black friends, white friends, Latino. Mm-hmm. Why? Why are you able to do that?
I don't know. No, I'm kidding. I take the person as they are, you know, as they approach me. If they approach me with love and respect, then I'm going to approach them with love and respect. It's, you know, everyone has their story. Everyone has things that they go through. I may not be able to relate to it. I may be able to. I can listen. I can always listen. That's the one thing everyone can do, is always listen, whether you understand it or not. I love listening because you can learn something new from someone that came from a completely different area. Like going to college was so amazing because I actually got to hear many different stories from different people from around the world, not just California, from around the world. I know I have friends from all over now, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's different. It is really different. Hearing stories from people in Italy and how they treat young people in Europe, it's so different from how they treat young people here. It's more, they care. They actually care.
So does your faith play any role in who you are and your decision making when it comes to your values?
Yeah, I think so. It always comes up, like, especially like at St. Mary's. The thing about it is it's nice because, religion is always a part of every class. But even though I'm not someone that regularly attends church, I do believe in God. I always have. I love him. I know he's there for me because there are certain things that have happened to me where I could have come out way more hurt than I did, and way more damaged, and I may not have been able to come back from that, but I did. And so I know that he's there for me, and I know that he loves me, and I know that he's the reason why I'm here today. He's the reason why I am who I am. And so, yeah, religion, of course, does make a big role.
Debbie Donnelly is saying hi to you.
Hi, Debbie. And hi, Bob. Hi.
So before we do run out of time, from your perspective, looking in, I remember when I first started going for jobs and people would say, I don't think we ask that so much anymore in the same way, but they say 5 years from now, where do you see yourself? And I remember being 21 going, I don't know. But when you see the world, your world, the trajectory of your world, what would you say to all of us that, think of one or two things? What are the one or two things that we could do now to further the dialogue in race relations, particularly now around, blacks and native blacks? How do we get to a place where we're having the dialogue where we can all heal and come together? Yeah, that's the question. I was trying to think of a better way, but that's the question.
Talk about it. Share your story. That's the biggest thing I can say, because whenever I'm in class and, we're having a discussion and someone brings something up, the easiest way to not make it sound like you're just coming at that person is to share your experience. Because then they can say, oh, I never seen it that way. I didn't know that that could happen to you. And so it just makes it easier to be relatable to that person. And again, it doesn't make it seem like you're just attacking them with just facts. You're attacking them like, well, hey, no, but this happened to me. And this is how it went. And this is how it made me feel. And this is how it affects me today. And that can really change a person. Your story can truly change a person. That's why motivational speakers are huge today, because it can change someone. That's why they're so expensive, is because they do make a difference. Your story makes a difference.
So I want to thank Jade, and thank you, Kent, and Ed, Debbie, and Becky, and everybody for joining us this morning. And I definitely want to thank you for sharing your heart and spirit with all of us. We were hoping that Jacob would join us, but we'll continue this conversation. I want all of you to know that it is all about us working together and being together in this world. I don't want the movement to become lost as Jade, thank you, Jade, for reminding us, get lost in slogans and get lost in the moment. In order for us to have systemic change, we have to do exactly this: create dialogue, tell our stories, come together. And again, I would love to have a great conversation across the world around this at some point, maybe in using social media to do that. But we have to be the change that we want to see in this world, and the pain has got to stop. And it's only by being honest and coming together will we be able to do that. So from Jade and myself, we wish you nothing but peace and love, and we invite you to join us in the conversation. Start talking, start listening. Listen, listen, listen.
Ask questions.
Oh, say that.
You can ask questions. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing, actually.
Ask questions.
Yeah.
And we send you peace and we send you blessings. Have a wonderful day. God bless you.